The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. James Wells's boots as he made his way across the rocky terrain. His heart was beating fast inside his protective suit, but not from the physical effort. After 15 years of searching, he had finally found something that would change everything. "Base, are you seeing this?" he asked, his voice slightly shaky as he adjusted the camera on his helmet. The structure before him rose from the Martian soil like the tip of an iceberg, smooth, metallic, and definitely not natural. "Copy that, Dr. Wells. We're getting clear visuals," came the response from Mission Control. "Proceed with caution." James stepped closer to the entrance of what appeared to be an underground complex. The metal surface was covered in strange markings that seemed to glow faintly despite the dust covering them. He brushed away some of the red powder, revealing more of the intricate patterns beneath. "These aren't random," he muttered, more to himself than to the recording equipment. "They're mathematical sequences." His trained eye recognized the patterns, but something was off. The mathematics didn't match any known human system of calculation. The Discovery team worked for hours to secure the site. As the Martian sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert-like landscape, they managed to open the first chamber. The air that rushed out was stale, but their instruments showed no dangerous compounds. Inside, James found something that made him question everything he thought he knew about human history. The walls were covered in star charts, ancient ones, showing stellar positions from thousands of years ago. But these weren't human charts. The level of detail and the way they were projected in 3 dimensions using technology they didn't yet understand was far beyond anything humanity had achieved even now. "Dr. Wells," called out his assistant through the radio, "you need to see this." In another chamber, they found what looked like a control room. The panels were dead, covered in millennia of dust, but the symbols on them were clear enough. Back at the base camp that evening, James couldn't sleep. He sat in the research tent, surrounded by preliminary scans and photographs, trying to make sense of it all. The mathematics in the ruins didn't just show advanced calculations, they showed impossible ones, equations that dealt with concepts humanity was only now beginning to grasp. The next morning, as news of the discovery spread across Earth, the scientific community erupted into chaos. Some claimed it was proof of alien visitation. Others insisted it must be a hoax. But James knew better. This was just the beginning. When the World Space Coalition called an emergency meeting, James found himself standing before a panel of the world's top scientists and military leaders. The room was tense with anticipation as he presented his findings. "The site isn't just a building," he explained, pointing to his holographic displays. "It's a library, and based on our initial carbon dating and mineral analysis, it's at least 50,000 years old." The crowd murmured in disbelief. "But here's what's truly extraordinary," he continued, pulling up images of the star charts. "These maps show stellar positions that match exactly with our calculations of where stars would have been 50,000 years ago. Whoever built this new things we're only now discovering. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just evidence of alien life. It was evidence that someone had been mapping the stars from Mars when humans on Earth were still living in caves. Or so they thought." As James lay in his bunk that night, after all the meetings and debates, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something obvious. The mathematics, the star charts, even the basic design of the structure. There was something eerily familiar about it all. He pulled out his tablet and began comparing the mathematical sequences from the ruins with ancient human number systems. That's when he saw it. Hidden beneath layers of complexity, the basic patterns matched some of the oldest human mathematical concepts ever discovered. James sat up straight, his mind racing. Could it be? The thought was almost too incredible to consider, but the evidence was right there in front of him. This wasn't just a random alien outpost. This was something far more significant and far more shocking. He needed to dig deeper, because if his suspicions were correct, Everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe was about to change forever. Captain Ann Miller stood at the bridge of the Stellar Explorer, humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, watching as the stars streaked past in long lines of light. After 6 months of travel, they were finally approaching their destination, a system where similar ruins to those found on Mars had been detected. "Captain, we're picking up some unusual readings," said her navigation officer. There's a lot of artificial structures out there, way more than we expected." Annie leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the main screen. As they dropped out of FTL, her breath caught in her throat. The space around them was filled with ships, dozens of them, all of different designs and sizes. None of them looked human. A message flashed across their communication screen in multiple languages. One of them, surprisingly, was English. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Stellar Coalition space. Please identify yourself." Anne took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for. "This is Captain Ann Miller of the Earth vessel Stellar Explorer. We come in peace." There was a long pause. The crew waited in tense silence. Finally, the response came. "Earth vessel, maintain your position. You will be boarded for inspection." When the alien delegation arrived, Anne was struck by how different they all looked. There were 12 representatives, each from a different species. Some had scales, others fur, and a few looked almost like walking plants. Their leader, who introduced himself simply as the first speaker, was tall and silver-skinned. "We have been watching your species for some time," the first speaker said, his words automatically translated by their systems. "We did not expect you to achieve FTL travel so quickly." Anne noticed how they looked down at her and her crew, like adults watching children take their first steps. The aliens spoke of their great history, of how they had seeded the galaxy with life billions of years ago, of how they guided younger species like humans toward the stars. But something felt off. Dr. Wells's findings from Mars had suggested a different story, and these aliens seemed too eager to establish their superiority. "We would be honored to learn from you," Anne said carefully, following her diplomatic training. "Our own discoveries have left us with many questions." The first speaker's expression changed slightly. "Discoveries?" "Yes," Anne replied, watching their reactions closely. "We found some interesting ruins on Mars. Ancient ones. We were hoping to find more." The aliens exchanged quick glances. "Ah, yes," the first speaker said smoothly. "Remnants of one of our early observation posts, no doubt. Nothing significant." But Anne had seen their momentary confusion. These beings, who claimed to have seeded the galaxy with life, hadn't known about the ruins on Mars. Over the next few days, the Stellar Coalition showed them their achievements. They had massive space stations, terraformed planets, and technology that seemed like magic. Yet Anne noticed they were hesitant to discuss anything about Earth's solar system or to answer specific questions about their history. In her private quarters, Anne received an encrypted message from Earth. Dr. Wells had found more evidence. The mathematical principles in the Mars ruins predated anything the Coalition was showing them. Either the aliens were hiding something, or they didn't know their own history. "Captain," one of the younger aliens approached her during a tour. "Is it true that your species evolved from primates?" "Yes," Anne answered, noting the genuine curiosity in his voice. "Our evolution is well documented." "How strange," he mused. "Most species in the Coalition evolved from much simpler life forms, and none of us have such complete evolutionary records." Anne filed this information away. Another piece that didn't fit the Coalition's story. They claimed to have seeded life throughout the galaxy, yet they seemed surprised by basic facts about Earth's history. As she prepared for another meeting with the Coalition Council, Anne couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had stumbled into something much bigger than first contact. These aliens might be advanced, but their story had holes in it, holes that somehow connected to the ruins on Mars and Earth's own mysterious past. She just hoped they could uncover the truth before the Coalition realized what humanity had really discovered. Dr. James Wells and Dr. Robert Stone sat in a dimly lit room deep within the Mars research base, surrounded by holographic displays of both alien and human historical records. They had been comparing the data for weeks now, and something wasn't adding up. "Look at this again," Robert said, pointing to a timeline of alien civilizations. Every single species in the stellar coalition emerged between 8 to 10,000 years ago. Not a single one is older than that. James nodded, pulling up images from ancient Earth. But these human cave paintings are 15,000 years old, and we have tools dating back hundreds of thousands of years. He paused, rubbing his tired eyes. Why would the supposed creators of all life in the galaxy be younger than their creation? They had been secretly gathering evidence ever since Captain Miller's first contact with the Coalition. The aliens had given Earth access to their historical database as a gift to the young species, but they hadn't expected humans to analyze it so thoroughly. Robert pulled up another display, this one showing genetic data. Here's another strange thing. All Coalition species have perfectly linear evolution. No dead ends, no failed branches, no mass extinctions. It's like, he hesitated, it's like they were designed to succeed. While Earth's fossil record shows the messy reality of natural evolution, James finished the thought. Countless extinctions, adaptations, and accidents of nature. Our history looks real. Theirs looks planned. A soft beep indicated an incoming transmission from the Stellar Explorer. Captain Miller's face appeared on their screen, her expression serious. "Doctors, we found something interesting. The Coalition just gave us access to their central library, but they seem nervous about us looking too closely at certain sections." "What sections?" James leaned forward. "Anything relating to Earth's solar system. They've marked it as restricted for historical accuracy review, but our computer specialist managed to grab some data before they locked us out. She sent over a file. You need to see this." The file contained fragments of an ancient star chart. James's heart started beating faster as he recognized the style. It was identical to the ones they'd found in the Mars ruins. But this chart was from a Coalition archive on the other side of the galaxy. "Robert," James said slowly, "remember how we couldn't figure out why the mathematical systems in the Mars ruins seemed so familiar yet so advanced?" He pulled up their original findings. "What if we've been looking at it backwards? What if they're not advanced alien mathematics that seem familiar? What if they're advanced human mathematics that seem alien?" Robert's eyes widened as he understood. "You think? Look at this." James overlaid the oldest human mathematical systems they had found with the alien charts. The basic principles are the same, not similar, exactly the same, down to the foundational concepts. They worked through the night, comparing more records. Every piece of evidence pointed to an impossible conclusion. The Coalition's supposedly ancient species all appeared suddenly, with advanced technology and knowledge they couldn't explain. Meanwhile, humanity had a clear record of slow, painful progress over hundreds of thousands of years. "We need to check one more thing," James said as morning approached. He pulled up geological data from Earth. Here, evidence of an advanced civilization on Earth, nearly destroyed by a massive catastrophe about 12,000 years ago, right before the first Coalition species appeared. Robert sat back in his chair, stunned. "So you're saying humanity isn't the new species here? We're the survivors of something much older?" James looked at the displays surrounding them. The Coalition species didn't seed life in the galaxy. They were seeded by our ancestors. Just then, another message came in from Captain Miller. "Doctors, we have a problem. The Coalition is starting to ask questions about the Mars ruins. Very specific questions. I don't think we can keep this quiet much longer." James and Robert shared a look. They had found the truth, but now they had to decide what to do with it. Because somewhere in the Coalition's restricted archives lay the full story of humanity's true past, and the real reason their ancestors had hidden it away. Commander Tom Walker guided his ship, The Deep Seeker, through the darkness of uncharted space. His mission was classified: to investigate coordinates found hidden in the Mars ruins. What he found made his mouth go dry. "Are you seeing this?" he asked his crew as they approached what looked like an abandoned space station. It was massive, stretching for miles in every direction, its dark surface covered in the same symbols they have found on Mars. "No signs of power, but the structure is intact," reported his science officer. "Age estimate is, this can't be right." He checked the readings again. It's over 50,000 years old. They docked at an ancient airlock that somehow matched their modern systems perfectly. Tom led the boarding team himself, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. The station was dead, but not destroyed. It was as if someone had simply turned everything off and walked away. "Commander," called one of his engineers, "we found some kind of data center." The room they entered was filled with crystalline structures, each one apparently storing massive amounts of information. These looked like quantum storage devices, but far more advanced than anything we have. Tom touched one of the crystals, and to everyone's surprise, it lit up. A holographic display filled the room, showing star maps, scientific data, and historical records, all in ancient human languages. "Get all of this copied," he ordered, "and someone get Dr. Wells on the comm. He needs to see this." But before they could begin, another discovery changed everything. In a sealed chamber at the heart of the station, they found bodies. Not alien bodies, human bodies, perfectly preserved in stasis pods that had kept them intact for 50,000 years. "They're alive," the medical officer whispered in shock, "in some kind of suspended animation. And their DNA, it matches ours." "Exactly." Tom sent an urgent message to Earth. "Found ancient human outpost. Need immediate support. Situation more complex than expected." As they waited for a response, the team explored more of the station. They found laboratories with technology they couldn't understand, libraries of data about planets across the galaxy, and most surprisingly, detailed plans for uplifting other species to intelligence. "Look at these dates," one scientist said, examining the data. "These plans, they're exactly how the coalition species developed. But these were written thousands of years before any of them existed." Tom walked through the empty halls, trying to make sense of it all. The station felt familiar somehow, like walking through an old house you lived in as a child but can't quite remember. Their discovery didn't stay secret for long. Coalition ships arrived within days, demanding access to the station. But something strange happened when they tried to board. The station's ancient defense systems activated, responding only to human biosignatures. "This station belongs to humanity by right of inheritance," Tom told the angry coalition representatives. "Your own laws about ancient artifacts support this claim." The coalition ships backed off, but Tom knew this was just the beginning. He watched as more human ships arrived, bringing scientists and researchers eager to unlock the station's secrets. In his private quarters that night, Tom reviewed the first translated documents from the station's database. They told an incredible story. Humanity had once ruled the stars, advancing to heights of technology and knowledge that modern humans could barely imagine. But something had gone wrong. A great catastrophe had forced them to retreat to Earth, abandoning their empire. Before they left, they had seeded the galaxy with primitive life forms, carefully designed to evolve into the species that now made up the coalition. As Tom read the final passages, he understood the full weight of what they had found. This wasn't just humanity's past, it was the galaxy's future. Because now that they had found this station, there was no going back. The children were about to learn that their parents had returned. He sent one final message to Earth. "Tell Dr. Wells he was right. We were here first, and we left ourselves a way back." The ancient defense system hummed to life across the galaxy, its network awakening for the first time in 50,000 years. On 100 different worlds, varied machines responded to the presence of human DNA, recognizing the genetic code of their long-lost masters. Dr. James Wells stood in the Mars control room, watching as dormant technology all over the solar system began to power up. The ruins they had found weren't just a library. They were a key that had started a chain reaction. "They're coming," his assistant said, looking at the long-range sensors. A fleet of coalition ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Their demands were simple: shut down all ancient systems immediately. On the ancient space station, Commander Tom Walker watched as Tasis pods slowly opened, revealing their human occupants. The first to wake was a woman who looked both ancient and somehow timeless. Her eyes opened, already alert and aware. "You found us," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. "We hoped you would, once you were ready." She sat up slowly, looking at the modern humans with a mix of pride and sadness. "I am Kay, Chief Archivist of the Old Empire." Back on Earth, the Coalition's message played on every screen. "Your species has accessed restricted technology. This is a violation of galactic law. Stand down immediately." But they couldn't stand down. Every piece of ancient human technology was now online, responding to human commands as if no time had passed. Orbital defense platforms, hidden beneath the surface of moons and asteroids, emerged from their long sleep. Massive ships, buried under the ice of Europa, broke free of their frozen tomb. "We had to hide it all," Kay explained to Tom as more of her people awoke. "The catastrophe was coming, and we couldn't stop it. A wave of destruction that would have wiped out all advanced life in the galaxy." She touched a control panel, bringing up ancient star charts. "We had a choice. Try to fight and watch everything die, or hide and preserve life for the future." Dr. Wells received the transmission from the station and finally understood. They didn't just go back to Earth, he told his team. They planned everything. Our entire history, the fall of their civilization, the rise of primitive humans, our slow development of technology. It was all carefully designed to protect us and give us time to grow strong enough. The coalition ships moved closer, but they were nervous now. None of their weapons could interface with the ancient human systems. None of their override codes worked. They were facing technology that their own civilizations had been based upon, and they didn't even know it. "We seeded the galaxy with new life," Kay continued, showing Tom the detailed plans. "We gave them the potential for intelligence, for civilization. We became the gods they would later claim to be. And we watched, hidden, as they grew." In orbit around Earth, Captain Ann Miller faced down the Coalition fleet. The ancient defense systems responded to her commands as naturally as breathing. "This is your final warning," she transmitted. "Stand down and prepare for peaceful dialogue." The Coalition ships held their position, uncertain. Their sensors showed thousands of ancient weapons platforms coming online across the galaxy. Weapons they had never known existed, built into the very foundations of their worlds. "We hid ourselves in our own past," Kay explained, her eyes filled with the memories of millennia. "Buried our knowledge in our genes, in our myths, in the very stones of Earth. We became our own ancestors, guiding humanity down a path that would lead us back to the stars when it was safe." The Coalition fleet finally retreated, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the full truth of human history was revealed. They had never been a young species stumbling into a galaxy of ancient civilizations. They were the first, the oldest, the ones who had sacrificed everything to preserve life in the galaxy. And now they were back, ready to take their place once again among the stars they had seeded so long ago. The Stellar Coalition's attempt to contain humanity lasted exactly 3 days. They tried blockades, they tried threats, and they even tried to turn off the ancient systems by force. Nothing worked. The old empire's technology simply ignored their efforts like a parent ignoring a child's tantrum. Captain Ann Miller stood on the bridge of the Stellar Explorer, now enhanced by awakened technology that had been sleeping in its very walls. She watched as coalition ships tried and failed to breach Earth's defense grid. "They still don't understand," she said to her crew. "They think we're being rebellious. They don't realize we built the foundation their entire civilization stands on. On Mars, Dr. James Wells worked with Kay and the other ancient humans to unlock more of their hidden legacy. The more they discovered, the more amazing their true history became. Your civilizations were our greatest achievement, Kay explained to a group of coalition representatives who had agreed to peaceful talks. We didn't just seed planets with life. We crafted entire evolutionary paths, built hidden guides into your very DNA, left clues that would lead you to develop in ways that would let you survive what was coming. The coalition members sat in stunned silence as she showed them proof after proof. Their own historical records, properly decoded, showed the careful guidance of human hands. Their greatest technological achievements had been subtly shaped by systems left behind thousands of years ago. But why? Asked the first speaker, his silver skin pale with shock. Why create us only to abandon us? James stepped forward with the answer they had found in the Mars ruins. Because the galaxy was dying. A wave of cosmic radiation was approaching that would have wiped out all advanced life. The only way to survive was to go dormant, to become primitive enough to weather the storm. Our ancestors chose to save everyone, not just themselves. Anne added from her ship, her words broadcast to every coalition world. They hid their technology, erased their civilization, and became primitive again. They gave up everything to ensure life would continue. The evidence was overwhelming. Every coalition species found signs of human influence in their past. Ancient ruins began responding to human presence across the galaxy. Orbital platforms that had been thought to be natural moons revealed themselves as defense stations. We are not your enemies, Kay told the Coalition Council. We are your creators, your guardians, your older siblings who had to go away for a while. And now we're back to help you understand your heritage. Some coalition members reacted with anger, unable to accept that their claimed ancient heritage was a lie. Others responded with relief, finally understanding why their own histories had so many unexplained gaps. In orbit around Earth, the coalition fleet faced a choice. Their weapons were useless against human technology. Their attempts to assert control had failed. And now their own people were beginning to accept the truth. You have 1 hour to stand down. And transmitted to the coalition ships. Not because we want to fight, but because it's time for you to understand who you really are. The next 60 minutes passed in tense silence. On planets across the galaxy, more ancient systems awakened. Hidden libraries opened their doors. Buried ships rose from their resting places. Each revelation brought more proof of humanity's role as the galaxy's first civilization. Finally, the coalition fleet powered down their weapons. The first speaker's voice came over the channel, heavy with emotion. We request guidance from our elders. Anne smiled as she sent her response. Welcome to the family. For real this time. James watched from Mars as the coalition ships began to withdraw. Kay stood beside him, looking up at the stars with tears in her eyes. It worked, she whispered. All those thousands of years of planning, of hiding, of waiting. The children have grown up enough to learn the truth. The ancient human turned to James with a proud smile. And now, at last, we can all go home together. 6 months after the coalition fleet stood down, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The ancient human technology had transformed everything. But not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of taking control, humanity had chosen to share their knowledge. In the restored halls of the space station, Dr. James Wells watched as human and alien scientists worked side by side. They were learning from each other, combining the wisdom of the old empire with the fresh perspectives of the younger races. The navigation charts were only the beginning, a young coalition scientist told him excitedly. These quantum computers hold the secrets of manipulating space-time itself. Your ancestors understood things we never even dreamed of. Kay walked through the station's corridors daily, sharing stories of the old empire with anyone who would listen. But she wasn't just teaching. She was learning too. The younger races had developed their own unique solutions to problems, their own ways of seeing the universe. "We didn't create you to be our servants," she explained to a group of mixed species. "We created you to be our companions, to bring new ideas and new life to a galaxy we feared would die. And look how wonderfully you've grown." On Earth, Captain Ann Miller had become the head of a new organization, the Galactic Heritage Council. Its purpose was to help both humans and coalition species understand their shared history and build a better future together. The old empire didn't fall, she told the first graduating class of mixed species officers. It evolved. It became all of us. And now we can take the best of both worlds, their advanced technology and our diverse perspectives, to build something even greater. Commander Tom Walker led joint missions to uncover more ancient sites, but instead of keeping them secret, every discovery was shared. Coalition archaeologists worked alongside human historians, piecing together the full story of how humanity had saved the galaxy. "Each ruins tells the same story," he said, standing in a newly discovered city on a distant world. "Our ancestors didn't just plan for survival, they planned for reunion. Everything they built was designed to work again, once we were ready to find it. The ancient defense systems, which had once frightened the coalition, were repurposed. They became navigation beacons, research stations, and teaching centers. The weapons were transformed into tools for exploring and building." In the coalition capital, the first speaker addressed a changed council. Representatives of Earth sat among them now, not as newcomers but as rediscovered elders. "We thought we were the ancient ones," he said. "We thought we knew everything. But in learning we were wrong. We have gained more than we lost." Back on Mars, where it had all begun, Dr. Robert Stone continued studying the ruins. But now he had help. Coalition scientists who brought their own knowledge and questions. Together, they discovered that the Mars facility wasn't just a library. It was a seed, planted by the old empire, designed to awaken precisely when it did. "They calculated everything," he told his team. "The evolution of our civilizations, the development of our technologies, even the moment we would meet. They knew that only by growing up separately could we truly appreciate each other when we finally came together." Kay stood at a window on the space station, watching ships of all designs move through space. Human vessels flew alongside coalition craft, their crews mixed, their missions shared. "This is what we hoped for," she said softly. "Not to rule again, but to rejoin a galaxy full of new family members." James joined her at the window. "What happens now?" he asked. "Where do we go from here?" Kay smiled, pointing to a distant star. "Out there, somewhere, are the remnants of the radiation wave that forced us into hiding. It's harmless now, but studying it might help us prevent similar threats. That's our next mission. Human and coalition scientists working together to protect all life in the galaxy. Not as rulers and subjects," James added, "but as equals." "As family," Kay corrected him. "Different branches of the same tree, finally growing together again under the same stars."